How did your business start making money? I am asked this question all the time, and it is probably the most important question an entrepreneur can ask me, because your number one job is to keep your business running, plain and simple. I had to answer that question in 2016 when I quit my job at Morgan Stanley. I went all in on Morning Brew, and we had just raised $750,000 from 28 investors, including family and friends, and I really didn't want to lose their money. At this point in time, we were making no money, and we ran the risk of burning through our investors' cash, having to lay off our employees, and having to shut down the business, which would have royally sucked because I just went all in on the thing. We ran the numbers and our goal was simple. We had to do $400,000 in revenue to keep the business alive. So with no income, my co-founder and I had to answer a very simple question. How the do we start making money? We knew we were gonna make money through advertising, but we had no experience doing that or selling some of the biggest brands in the world. And how were we going to build credibility or get a foot in the door when we were two 22-year-old first-time entrepreneurs with a rinky-dink media business in a sea of other companies? You're about to find out. This video is sponsored by Walmart Business, but more on them in a few minutes. I'm heading into Morning Brew's office right now, so let's keep the story going there. So I remember our first advertising deal, it was $2,500, and an early Morning Brew advisor got it for us. He basically said he was throwing beer money our way. And it was awesome, but we still have the challenge of figuring out how are we going to sustainably get lots of brands to spend money with us so we could have a real business and get profitable as fast as possible. And so I was looking everywhere for advertisers. Anytime I was walking through the city, I'd look at stores and write down brands that I could reach out to. Anytime I was browsing online, I'd keep that list going. But one day I was on LinkedIn and I saw a DM from the director of admissions at UVA. And long story short, the message was asking me if I wanted to apply to their Masters of Accounting program. And in that moment, a light bulb went off. I said to myself, if they're looking to get in front of Alex, a 20-something-year-old who worked in finance, they're probably trying to get in front of a lot of people like me. And know who has a lot of people like me? Morning Brew. So I did what any scrappy entrepreneur would do. I found the email address for the director of admissions. I shot her a note basically saying, Morning Brew has tens of thousands of Alex Liebermans and it seems like you're trying to get in front of them. And then I waited. I got an email back from UVA. They said they were interested, which was freaking awesome. But now we had two issues. We had never sold an ad in our life, and we didn't know what an advertisement in Morning Brew even looked like. So I had 15 minutes to convince the University of Virginia to spend money with Morning Brew. And how I was trying to approach this was to make this an absolute no-brainer for them. And to me, the way I would get to no-brainer is to understand their goals, the audience they wanted to get in front of, and how much they were willing to spend. I asked them what their goals were, and they said they wanted to get more applications for the Masters of Accounting program. Okay, check. They said they wanted to get in front of young professionals, specifically people who worked in finance and who were considering a career in accounting. Okay, got it. And they said they were willing to spend $5,000 to $10,000 on this campaign. And so then, after getting all this information, the way I approached this pitch was simple. I said, Morning Brew has an audience full of young finance professionals that we have trust with. And by the way, if you're trying to get them to sign up for your Masters of Accounting program, you can do it way more authentically through our words in our newsletter versus sending a sponsored LinkedIn message where you can't build trust. And finally, I said, rather than $5,000 or $10,000, we'll charge you $2,700 for 3 spots, so it's an absolute no-brainer. So I gave my best pitch, and to my surprise, an incredibly legit American university was down to spend money with Morning Brew. They bought 3 ads for $2,700. But remember, this was just one deal. We needed to do so many more to get to that $400,000 mark, but I will say, this gave me a ton of confidence, and it gave us an idea for how to find more advertisers. So after working with UVA, what I learned is that there were a group of advertisers that were willing to take a leap of faith on a small media company like ours. And I call them the lowest hanging fruit advertiser. And the best way to understand them is through this nifty little pyramid that marketers use. So this pyramid is basically how all marketers think about driving customers. It starts at the top with awareness, then interest, desire, and action. And basically, the way to think about this is these top 3 levels, awareness, interest, and desire. That is what a group of marketers called brand marketers really cares about. Brand marketers are oftentimes folks that work at large companies. They spend millions of dollars. They're people who spend on Super Bowl ads, and their goal is to cast as wide of a net as possible. What that means is they're probably not interested in Morning Brew because we weren't casting a wide net when we had 50,000 subscribers. But we haven't talked about the bottom of the pyramid. And at the bottom of the pyramid, we have action, right? And action, the goal is simple. As a marketer, you put money into a media or marketing channel, and your goal is to get money out through sales, applications, some sort of lead. And the types of marketers that are focused on the action level, we call them performance marketers. And what we realized as we worked with UVA is that performance marketers would actually give Morning Brew a chance because all they cared about was driving results. So as we thought about our strategy beyond just one ad deal, it became clear that we needed to focus on a group that we called the chronic email advertiser. And it was a group of performance marketers that already had spent a lot with newsletters. These marketers were all in on email newsletters, so we just had to convince them to go all in on Morning Brew. Very good. So what we did is we signed up for 250 different email newsletters, and then our intern at the time, Bram, shout out Bram, he basically tracked every single day who was advertising in these different newsletters. We took it a step further by looking at, from these brands who are working with newsletters, who was actually subscribed to Morning Brew. And that gave us this hot list of people who we knew would want to market in email newsletters and people who understood what we were doing with the brew. We started sending emails to this list of warm leads, and little by little, we heard back and started closing deals. Warby Parker, Allbirds, Brooklinen, Casper started as $5,000 deals, then $10,000, then $15,000, $25,000, ultimately $50,000 deals. We had a ton of momentum and it was getting really exciting, but the issue was still very real. How were we going to get to $400,000 in revenue when these little deals were just not adding up fast enough? We were spending all day pitching clients, going through LinkedIn, going through our subscriber list. It was taking so much time, and we knew if we wanted to get our business to profitability, we had to start working with large companies. We had to start working with these Fortune 500 brands that I had dreamed of partnering with when we started the company. And I wasn't sure how we were gonna do it, but then one day I got the email that changed everything. It was the email that I knew could turn us into a profitable business. Okay, so I got this cryptic email from a guy named James at a New York City media agency, and basically what it said was he had a client who was a large financial institution that was RFPing us. I had no idea what that meant, and they were interested in spending $250,000 with Morning Brew. I almost turned into a puddle when I got that email, but then I tried to get more information. James ended up telling me that the client was Discover Card, literally a dream client for us to work with that we never thought we would have a chance to work with, and that we had to submit our pitch to them by the end of the week. So Austin and I put our best foot forward. We threw in the kitchen sink basically anything we could do to win the $250,000 deal. We sent an email to James, and then we hoped. We waited some more. And 3 weeks later, after we didn't hear a thing, we followed up with James, and he told us that Discover decided to go in a different direction. This was probably the lowest point in my early Morning Brew days, because that $250,000 could have made us profitable on the spot. It felt like this lifeline that had been ripped out from us, and I felt so disenfranchised. It felt like all momentum and all hope had been lost. And I had all these questions like, why didn't they work with us? Was there a mistake we made? Was there one change we could have made to actually win the partnership? Who else were we competing against? But then James gave me one piece of information that made me confident that we could still land our first Fortune 500 brand. So the one piece of information that I got is the only reason Discover Card was interested in working with us is because someone really high up in marketing at the company supposedly subscribed to Morning Brew. Obviously, my brain started spinning at this point, and I had to find out who it was. So I did a whole bunch of internet sleuthing on LinkedIn, our subscriber list, and I ended up finding out that the CMO of Discover worldwide had been a subscriber to Morning Brew for months. Obviously, I did what any entrepreneur would do, and I shot her an email. But the way that I emailed her, I was very intentional about. I didn't pitch her on another partnership. I didn't ask her why she said no to our deal. I simply reached out for advice. So I shot her a message saying, she's obviously a world-class marketer. I wanted to learn from her. I hit send and then I waited. A few hours later, she responded saying how she was such a big fan of Morning Brew. She told me that she had found out about Morning Brew because her son was an ambassador for the brew at Georgetown. It's crazy, full circle. This is how we started our company in the first place, was with college students, and that's how a CMO of a major company found out about it. We hopped on a call and it was so interesting how it went down. It started with me asking her for advice, asking why she read our newsletter, and understanding if she had ideas for how we could expand the business. And I could tell she was so excited about partnering, and it was my chance to really sell her on working together. And the main strategy that I used in trying to sell her on a deal is a lesson I learned from an amazing book called the Adweek Copywriting Handbook. And in that book, it talks about how one of the keys to selling is to build momentum, to get the person on the other side of the table to nod their head and say yes. And so that's what I did. I would ask the CMO questions like, are you trying to get in front of young professionals? And I knew what the answer was. I knew she was gonna say yes. And so I did this over and over and over until I knew enough momentum was built up such that she would be selling me on a partnership. So we get off the call and she said that we would be hearing from her soon. A day later, I get an email from James, media agency guy, and he said that Discover had a new RFP for us for a $100,000 deal. Like the previous deal, my co-founder and I put our heads together and we came up with what we thought was the most creative way for us to partner together and make their brand really cool in front of our audience. We hit send and then we waited. And I remember this moment like it was yesterday. I was on top of a ski mountain in Colorado and an email comes into my phone. I open it, it's from James, and it says, your RFP has been accepted. That was the moment. Not only did we just win this $100,000 deal with a Fortune 500 brand that I always dreamed of working with, but more importantly, we had gotten to $400,000 in revenue, which meant Morning Brew was a profitable business. You know, as I was making this video, I was kind of reflecting on the whole process of going from no income and no reputation to $400,000 in revenue and a partnership with one of the largest companies in the world. And I was thinking about like, is there anything I would have done differently? And the honest answer is not really. I first thought about, should we have hired a salesperson earlier so I didn't have to do the sales myself? But candidly, we probably couldn't have afforded that person. You know, maybe the only thing I would have done differently is put together an advisory board of people that had a network of large brands and large marketers so we could have had momentum earlier. Maybe that's the only thing. But otherwise, I just feel super grateful to reflect on this journey, and it's kind of crazy how now at Morning Brew we have 215 people, a 70-person revenue org. We work across platforms, whether it's newsletters, podcasts, video, social, etc. Just 7 years ago, I was pounding down the doors of CMOs, asking them for advice, begging for them to take a minute of my time. And now the fact that CMOs are reaching out to me for advice on newsletters and digital media, it's both crazy and I feel incredibly grateful for it. When you've got a monumental to-do list to complete for your business, making a bunch of stops for the right office supplies drains your time and your energy. That's why you need a one-stop shop for everything, whether it's new laptops or a selection of dairy options for your team's morning coffee. The good news, that's what Walmart Business was made for. They've got low prices and bulk quantities on things like office supplies, grocery, tech, you name it. You can choose between shipping, delivery, or pickup as fast as same day because flexibility is the name of the game. It's the Walmart you love, now for your business. Learn more at business.walmart.com. That's business.walmart.com.